Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our NINDS K Award Open House. I'm Tish Wigand. I'm the Director of the Office of Training and Workforce Development at NINDS. And we wanted to take some time today in light of the many changes that have been that we've been experiencing at NIH to just sort of reorient everyone to the Career Development Awards, the K Awards that NINDS is currently supporting, and give you all a chance to ask some questions if you have them, and just really become updated on where we are and where things stand in the K landscape right now. So I'm joined today by colleagues from my office. We have Dr. Lauren Ulrich, who is the Deputy Director of the office. We also have Dr. Elizabeth Sipek, who is, you will hear more from her about some of the K mechanisms that she administers. She is also the lead for the HEAL initiative training programs at NIH. And then we also have Dr. Jenny Kim, who is a program director in our office as well, who will be helping keep us going straight here on this webinar. So the agenda for today, so obviously a welcome introduction happened, but we'll give a little bit of just a quick overview of the training and career development landscape at NINDS, who we are, what we're doing, what mechanisms we are supporting here. And then we'll talk through some just high-level updates on the existing K programs that we're supporting. So the K32, the K01, the K99R00, and the suite of clinician scientist K awards that we support. And then we will have time at the end, maybe to take a few questions that are relevant for the entire group before we proceed into breakouts where you can choose which breakout is appropriate for you, and we can talk a little bit more about any questions or just go a little bit deeper around these mechanisms. Just by way of housekeeping before we get started, we'll keep everyone muted during the presentation, but if you have questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box or save them for the breakouts at the end. We are recording this webinar, and the slides and the recording will be shared with registrants after the event. All right, so we want to just start by reminding you that many things have changed, but one thing that hasn't is that the NINDS Office of Training and Workforce Development is here. We are still standing, and we're keeping the ship sailing, and we're here to help you. Here is the team. So as I mentioned, myself and the director of the office, we have Lauren, who you'll hear from a little bit later in this talk. And then we have a host of just outstanding program directors and also a health program specialist. An operations liaison, and we are all here sort of just taking the lead with our purview around all of the training and workforce development programs that NINDS supports. We also have shown on the slide Dr. Andy Meredith, who is our sort of leader. She's our one level above us, and so all of us are here to kind of help everyone to understand and distill out the information that is coming through as things are changing here, and to help you guys navigate the decisions that you have to make in terms of funding and funding decisions to help you get going on your career. So the key here is feel free to reach out. We're here to help you. If you need anything, it's our job. You're not bothering us. Don't be afraid. And if we aren't the right people to help you, you can ping us. We're here, we're friendly, and we can help get you to where you need to go. So do not be a stranger. Now, in terms of the work that we do and sort of our purview, here is a snapshot of the training and career development programs that NINDS currently supports. So this is as of July 2026. As many of you know, there are lots of changes at NIH. There's a move to sort of consolidate a lot of programs under parent funding opportunity announcements. So there are some changes that have happened already, and there will be more changes to come, but this is where we are right now. So we have we have programs that span the entire sort of career trajectory from high school students up to new faculty. We have fellowships for graduate students. We have R25 and T32, a bunch of different institutional programs to train people in sort of cohorts. And then I do want to highlight that we continue to support the loan repayment program at NIH. So if this is something that would be useful to you to help to pay down any educational debt, that program is still going strong. Some small changes, but essentially everything is moving with that. So if you're interested, please do reach out about that program. But today, of course, we're here to focus down on the K awards that we support. And if you are interested in finding out more information, go a little bit deeper on these, you can visit the grants.gov link that we have at the bottom of the page. We are also at NIH in the middle of moving content, sort of centralizing a lot of our content. So the content that the different individual institutes, for example, NINDS has long had its own website. We're sort of consolidating that all under grants.gov. So if you are looking for the most up-to-date information on what we're funding, what our priorities are, some of the key points about each mechanism, you can find that at this grants.gov link that we have shown on the slide. So again, we're here to talk about the Career Development Awards. We're gonna talk through everything that we've got in the hopper right now, including the K32, which is a new mechanism we're very excited about, and kind of a repurposing going under the parent K01. So you'll be interested to hear what we're talking about and what we're doing in that space. And then, of course, our K99s, K08, K23s, and then these unique mechanisms, the K02 and K22, for specific populations in the clinician space. So just a quick word about our career development priorities, what we're really looking for when we're what we expect to see people, to see K award applications do or contain. We want to see in these applications that there's like a real need that is explained and clear for why you need an additional period, or you need a period of mentored career development, and why the K award is the most appropriate for you at this time. And that can be justified by just giving us a very clear, feasible career development plan that addresses any training gaps that you will be seeking to fill during a period of mentored career development under the K award. We need to see evidence that this plan not only is going to support you to do the work of the K, to do the work where you are now, but that it will also set you up to move toward the next career stage, so that you have some idea of, I'm going to do this on the K, and this is where this is going to take me, right? Maybe I'm going to apply for an R01, or maybe I'm going to move on to a different flavor of K, et cetera. But we want to see that there is a plan that's not just stopping where you are with the K, and that you have a thoughtful and feasible idea about what you're going to be doing next. We expect the scientific projects that are proposed to show some level of intellectual ownership by the candidate. We check these all of the applications for overlap with the mentor's work. We don't want to see that you're putting in a K application that is recapitulating, aim 2 and 3 of your mentor's R01. Obviously, the work is going to be related to the work that the mentor is doing, and it's not necessarily need to be something completely entirely unique, but it cannot have just direct overlap. There has to be some intellectual input of the candidate into the proposed project. We need to see appropriate institutional support. I think this becomes especially critical in the K99 when you're transitioning to that R00. It also is very important for a clinician scientist to make sure that your institution has your back, right? And that the K award is going to be a source of support for you, but that your institution is going to be there to fill the gap, to make sure that all of the infrastructure is in place, and also the appropriate mentorship to support you while you're on that K, so that you can get the work done and then progress to your next career stage. And then finally, we expect candidates to commit a minimum of 75% of their full-time professional effort to their program of career development, so to that K award. If you are a neurosurgeon, of course, you can reduce that effort to a minimum of 50%. So this is a bit of a snapshot of what we hope to see sort of overall when we're looking at career development applications that come through. Now, just a word about how you might think about putting together your application. I think starting at like the big picture, right? Where are you? What are your career goals? What are your research interests? Make sure you're really clear on and focused on what it is that you are excited about and what it is that you want to contribute. And then you can go from there and sort of think about the techniques, the skills, the knowledge, the relationships that are going to be necessary to allow you to achieve those goals. And then we always like to see a career development plan that is sort of gap-based. So you want to think about the skills or any gaps that you have, and then come up with a plan that will allow you to start to fill them during your time on the Career Development Award. So that's where your career development plan comes in. And this is sort of going hand in hand with what your research is, right? All of these kind of are aligned and sort of synergizing to help you develop not just your science, but yourself as a scientist and as an investigator. And then finally, you would want to just build that career development training plan, get that out on paper that's tailored and specific to you and specific to where you're trying to go and that maps to your career goals and research interests. And then certainly have the appropriate guidance and mentorship in place to be able to help you and guide you as you're enacting and putting this plan and bringing this plan to life. And then I think one final reminder, I think this is probably the last slide before we get down into talking about the specific K awards. I do want to remind you that the scored review criteria are, as they have been for quite some time, right? But they are different from what you see on R01s. On R01s, the review, when you put this application in, the study section is really focused on the science and the approach and the significance of the scientific project. Of the research. And when we're looking at career development awards, this is much more of a holistic review, right? So everything you see on this slide, the candidate, the career development plan that includes your career goals and objectives, and a plan to provide mentoring, the research plan, the mentors, co-mentors, consultants, collaborators, and then also the environment and the institutional commitment to the candidate. All of these components will be scored, and they will all be factored into what your final overall impact score will be. And so do pay attention to making each part of this application the best that it can be, and don't get just bogged down and focus so much on the research that these other pieces come sort of in short shrift. Because again, this is a career development award, right? It's not just about developing your science, but it's also a plan to develop you and set you up for a successful career. So with that, I will pass the baton to Dr. Elizabeth Sipek to talk about the K32.
Hi, everyone. So I handle the K32 now in our office, as well as our T32s, and like Tish mentioned, our pain and heal portfolio. So our K32 is a new program that just launched. It was led by NCI, and we're using this as a replacement for the F32 mechanism, in that we are not signed on to the parent F32 and will not be accepting any future applications to an F32. So we'll begin accepting applications to this NOFO at the first receipt date of October 12th. And the intention is to support rigorous mentored research with career development for our early stage postdoc scholars. And in the transition from an NRSA F to a K award, we're able to provide salary with research development funds for up to 3 years. And a hallmark of this program compared to the others you'll hear about today is that no preliminary data are required. We want to really emphasize innovative ideas and your career plans. So you're eligible to apply beginning 1 year before starting your postdoctoral position, so in your final year of graduate school, or within 2 years of beginning your postdoctoral training. Resubmissions are included in this eligibility window. And we cannot accept resubmissions from a prior F32. So if you had applied for the F32, those reviews and funding considerations are ongoing, but any subsequent submission would be a new submission to the K32. And you must have an identified postdoc lab, and you'll be submitting this application with that postdoctoral institution. So even if you're still a graduate student in your graduate institution, you'll be working with your postdoctoral institution to submit either that year prior for 2 years within your postdoc, and only for your first postdoctoral experience. That clock starts when you finish your PhD. At the time of award, not application, you do have to be a citizen or non-citizen national. And in terms of salary support, NINDS is able to provide up to $75,000 per year, consistent with your institution's salary levels, and research costs of up to $30,000 per year for those 3 years. With the expectation that after this award or towards the end, you can then apply for a more advanced career development award like one of the ones you'll hear about today, a K01, K08 if you're a clinician, K99, R00, or other funding. And so I'll be holding the K32 breakout room for any questions. And then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Lauren Ulrich to talk about our next K mechanisms.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to start with our K01. We're now signed on to the 2 parent K01s, the independent clinical trial required and not allowed. Similar to the K32, we'll begin accepting applications with the October 2026 receipt date to the parent K01. The purpose of the K01 is actually extremely broad. Just generally, it's to provide support and protected time for an intensive supervised career development experience leading to research independence. It will provide salary and research development funds for up to 5 years and can support basically anyone who has a research or health professional doctoral degree. And so that could be postdoc or faculty career levels, as long as you have never held an R01 or another disqualifying award. They're all listed in the NOFO. Usually these are major NIH awards, or if you've held other major K awards. And our priorities in the K01 space are very similar to our overall priorities, which is that you really need to make the case for why you still need mentored career development, especially as you get later in your career. We want to see that you really need a K and that you're not just delaying the time before you apply for an R01. So to this end, we do not have funding priorities related to years post-PhD. Some institutes do try to limit that, but we don't. So we are allowing candidates at various career stages to apply, from early postdoc to even a full faculty member could make the case, as long as they have not already had an R01 or one of these disqualifying awards. And they can make the case that they really need this mentor training for some reason. But just generally, like that need, that's what's going to make a strong application. So why do you need this mentor training? The intellectual ownership of the research, again, that's incredibly important, and only more, becomes more and more important the farther you are in your career. And then the other piece that is really key for the K01 is that meaningful institutional support. The K01 is not a transition award. We have a transition award. It's the K99R00, and I'll talk about that next. And so at NINDS, we really want to see that if you're applying for a K01, your institution is investing in you to stay there. You should not be applying for a K01 with the intention that you are going to leave the institution, in the second or third year of that award. We want to make sure that the plan, the mentor, the institution, the whole package is reviewed by the study section and, given their stamp of approval, and not doing this sort of bait and switch. That doesn't mean that if things change in the future, there is a path to transition the award, but that should not be the intention upon applying. And we will be closely scrutinizing the institutional commitment letter to make sure that it is sufficient for you to succeed in that place. Just generally, what we anticipate that it will be advanced postdocs and then faculty that will be applying for the K01, because we have the K32 for the early stage postdocs. And so we anticipate that this award is going to get you to be ready to submit an R01 or other major research application in 3 to 5 years from award. And again, like most Ks that we have by time of award, you must be a citizen or permanent resident. For postdoctoral fellows, the support is the same as the K32 and the same as the K99. So we try to harmonize across all our Ks that we have. And then for faculty who are awarded this grant, you can get up to $150,000 according to your institutional salary scale, and up to $75,000 per year of research support. For clinician scientists, we recommend that you apply to the K08 and K23 as opposed to the K01. But if for some reason somebody with that background did want to apply for the K01, we will provide the equivalent research and salary support as those mechanisms. We are also participating and have participated for a long time in the K99R00. And this mechanism is to support that initial mentored research experience, the K99 phase, followed by the independent research phase, which is the R00 phase, once you've transitioned into an independent faculty position. And then this, again, provides salary and research development funds in the K phase, the up to 2 years of the K phase, followed by its $249,000 total cost in each year of the R00 phase. For the K99, you have to be within 4 years of cumulative postdoctoral research experience in order to apply. And there are extensions available, and just reach out to us and let us know your situation, and we can tell you how we implement that policy if that applies to you. And it is also very important that you're not too far advanced, that you still do require that mentor training phase. And so you should require at least 12 months of training to become competitive for that independent faculty position, so that it's not the fact, again, that you're just delaying your going on the job market because you want this K99R00, that you really need to make the case that you still need that training. So like I said, like all career development awards, you need to justify the need. You need to have a clear and feasible career development plan. So thinking about in the actual time that you have left, what are the training gaps that you can fulfill? And be really specific about what your training needs are. Why are you in particular doing these things that you are proposing for both the research and the career plan? You also want to show really how that plan is going to get you towards the next career stage. So how is the K99 phase going to help you be successful on the faculty market? And then how is the R00 phase going to help you be successful in getting that first R01? For the K99, the intellectual ownership is so important. If you don't have that ability to take that project with you to your independent phase, then it's a non-starter. We just will not support that application. And then you also, in terms of eligibility, can only have that 48 months or 4 years of research experience, but we do allow 49 months for the resubmission application. And you can't be in a independent position. Sometimes people have questions about title, or if you had a child, for example, and you can just send all those questions to us and we'll help you figure out exactly how long your eligibility lasts through. You also must secure a faculty position by the end of the K99 phase. And so you have to, it's a delicate dance, right? You have to be in the exact right time where you need this amount of time left, and then you have to go on the job market and get the faculty position within those 2 years. So it's a lot. It can be pretty stressful, but we think that it is worth it. And like I said, the ultimate goal is that you get that first R01 and that you're starting to put in those applications during the R00 phase, and that's what's really setting you up for a quick launch and for success. This mechanism is the only training program that does not have the citizenship or permanent residency requirement. And if you have questions about that, again, you can just reach out to us. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Wiegand to tell us about the clinician scientists. And you're muted.
the final part of our presentation, we'll talk about the Clinician Scientist Career Development Awards. We'll start here with the bread and butter, I would call them, of the funding support from NIH for clinician scientists who are sort of at the mentored phase. So we have the K08s, which are for sort of basic science, and then the K23s, which is for patient-oriented research. So the Career Development Awards for clinicians, these are really designed to provide clinician scientists with the education, time to develop themselves, but also protected time so they can have time away from the clinic to enable them to launch an independent research career. The awards provide both salary and research development funds, and they can be used for up to 5 years of mentored research career development. And then there is an expectation, like with the rest of our Ks with other Ks, that you're going somewhere after this, right? That awardees are, in this case, expected to apply for an R01 or equivalent once they have been awarded their K, but not before. So they cannot have had a K or an R01 ahead of the K. So with respect to eligibility and details around the support, NINDS prioritizes applications from healthcare professionals who are licensed to practice clinically in the US and have a faculty position at the time of award. If you're an applicant that's beyond 5 years post-clinical training, so that would be post your consecutive residency and fellowship training, right? You should just reach out to us before you apply. We've never really denied anyone the opportunity to apply beyond 5 years. It's just that we want to have a sense of who you are and what your trajectory has been, so that we can help support you as you're going forward. And then as with the other Ks, except for the K99, candidates must be a citizen or non-citizen national or have been admitted for permanent residency at the time of the award. So not the time of application, but the time that they receive the award or accept the award. And these Ks will support salary up to $125K per year plus fringe and up to $51,000 per year in research support. NINDS has a unique use of the K02 currently. The K02 is used by different institutes across NIH in different ways. NINDS uses this as what's called an independent scientist award, but I think it's really trying to move people to independence. So we don't have a lot of people who sort of fall into this bucket, but it works for health professionals who are committed to a career in research and have recently achieved independent status. They may have had a K08, a K23, and they might be missing one or more components to be competitive for an R01, right? So they, again, are pretty advanced. It's almost like a bridge to the R01. So again, it typically follows a K08 or a K23 and of course, like an additional time of mentored career development that's needed to help that candidate become more successful or become successful in applying for an R01 and obtaining an R01. So with this mechanism, you get salary and research costs covered, not all of your salary and research, but there's salary and research support for the first 3 years of the K. And then the years 4 and 5 of this K02 are contingent upon successful competition for an R01 or equivalent. So it really is for an individual who is like, I take a look at where I am, I need a little bit more mentor training, but I think I'll be ready to apply for this R01 within the next few years. So if that's you, this is a mechanism to consider. And then for intramural scientists who are in the clinician space, particularly the neurologist, we have a K22 that's a transition award for individuals who are having their initial mentored, they would have initial mentored research experience at NINDS in the intramural program. And then they will transition like you would with the K99, for example, but transition to an extramural position for independent research and receive their final period or phase of K22 support. And so really it is just designed to help transition folks into independent academic faculty positions as they're coming out of the intramural space. And so here we have this table that Dr. Sipek created. I think that's really useful in helping to distill down and summarize the key criteria and sort of just all the main information about the K awards that we support. And I would say the key things here is that we have, support. We offer K awards that offer support for people from postdoc up to early career faculty. I think another key thing to note is the citizenship requirements. The K99 being the only one that is there's no citizenship requirement in order to attain it. And then I think also just to stress that there is an expectation with all of our mechanisms to help bridge people into the next phase of their career. So prior to submitting an application, I think you've probably all heard the advice to reach out to your program officer. And I would say this is probably the best advice that we can possibly give you. So prior to submitting an application, 3-6 months ahead of time, just reach out to us, email at our K Awards inbox. You can send an email there, include a draft of the specific aims for your project. They don't need to be in final form. We're not going to, rip them apart or anything. We just want to make sure that your project is a fit for the NINDS mission. And if it's not, we can help find a home for your project, hopefully at another institute at NIH. And then also include the expected or actual date of your postdoc start. And if there are any special conditions or circumstances that you need to discuss around, around your unique circumstances, you can also include those in an email to us. And then we will confirm eligibility, we'll confirm NINDS mission fit. Again, if your project doesn't fit in the NINDS mission, we'll help find a home at NIH if there is one for you and connect you with contacts at another institute. And then generally the way we sort of administer these awards at NINDS is the training office, so that's the team here on my team. We can address general questions on your application structure, on process, on all the components really that are not the scientific project. And then, but we will take your draft of the aims and confirm mission fit. And then we will also refer you to an NINDS subject matter expert who will be able to be sort of your partner in developing and in answering questions about the science of your project. And of course, you need to make sure your mentor is on board and that they're reading your application and they're helping guide you through this process, particularly on the science as well. And so here we just have some useful links for more information. We have the application guide from NIH. We created a document on suggestions for writing a good career development plan that you might want to take a look at. I think it has some good nuggets in there. We have another document on our funding considerations at NINDS when it comes to career development awards, and also you can learn more about the areas of interest that NINDS has generally when it comes to making funding decisions. And then finally, we have a few other resources that we want to make sure that we point out to you. First, we have the Building Up the Nerve podcast. Actually, first, I'm going backward across the slide. But we have the Building Up the Nerve podcast, which Dr. Ulrich and Dr. Matthews from our team now have created. They are the host of an award-winning podcast that I would absolutely recommend taking a look at. This is going to give you information on all things applying to NIH, related to applying to NIH for research support or for funding, and also just general stuff, tips and tricks, and the sort of the secret code behind life as a scientist and building your career in that space. We also, as I mentioned earlier, want to make sure that you can that you visit our grants and funding page, as that's where a lot of our information is migrating to. So make sure you have that bookmarked. As that's where all the latest stuff is, because there is a big transition going on with where we are communicating our information and what's going on with our websites, et cetera. And because there's a lot changing at NIH across all of the landscape, we would highly recommend that you subscribe to our training newsletter. This comes out every week, and we have all the latest information, latest updates on funding mechanisms, opportunities, even things that are outside of NINDS. So I would highly recommend that you subscribe to the newsletter, because that's going to be something that should be able to remain consistent when lots of other things are moving to different places in terms of where information is housed on our websites. So do subscribe. And then I guess the next, what we'll do next is we'll move into breakout rooms. So when Lauren will take the helm from there, but you'll be able to pick which breakout room is most appropriate for your areas of interest and the questions that you might have. But in the meantime, before we do that, I think we might have a few minutes or a couple of minutes to take a couple of questions that have been put in the chat. So Lauren, I will pass the mic back to you.
Okay, so I think a lot of the questions are pretty specific, but there are a few broader questions that are coming through. One is more generally about review. So I don't know if you want to talk just a little bit, Tish, maybe about the changes that we've seen to review in the past year and how K awards generally are being reviewed at CSR.
Sure. So as all of you probably are aware, maybe may not be aware, we used to have all of our K awards, every single one of them, every flavor, reviewed in-house through the NINDS scientific review branch. But last year, there was a change where all of review was consolidated. So any review that was going on at the institute level was consolidated under the NIH Center for Scientific Review. So all review of all applications that come to NIH are governed and administered by the Center for Scientific Review. Over the past year, as you can imagine, that's lots of new applications and lots of staffing changes to be able to accommodate all of this massive change in review. I think over the past year, the CSR has been working to sort of get things in line in terms of how review is working. So currently with K awards, they are being reviewed in study sections that either they're first of all subject specific, so they're based on your science, and they would be study sections that have only other K awards, so only all Ks, or potentially sometimes there might be a study section that has K awards, and they will also may review T32s in the same study section, but they will be grouped in separate sort of buckets. And T32s are very different from Ks, so there's not overlap there. But in general, they're being reviewed there. And then as we have done in the past, we receive scores, we are able to listen to the reviews. We don't have as much interaction and engagement with the SROs over there as we used to, but we are able to listen to the reviews, we are able to hear the discussions. Obviously, we see the scores, we see the summary statements. And as we have always done, NINDS has never had a pay line. I know there are changes with that have happened. We've never had a pay line in the training space. So we are continuing to use largely the same approach that we always have, where we kind of go down in score order. We look at the merits, the scientific merit that has been sort of laid out in the summary statement by the reviewers. And we kind of come to a place where the comments go from these are fixable issues to this needs to be revised and come back. Now, if you fall into the gray zone, we will also reach out to you. The program officer will reach out to you and give you the opportunity to respond to some of the critiques that maybe were more score driving, so that then we can have an internal deliberation as we're coming to our funding recommendations, and make a decision as to whether we would then say, okay, yeah, they addressed these comments really well, and we think that this is ready for prime time now, rather than asking you to come back. So hopefully that answers the question. But a lot has not changed at the NINDS level. A lot has changed with the way that the actual review itself is the review is happening. And I think there may be more changes as this process evolves and people kind of get used to it. But this is where we are right now.
And I guess in that vein, we have a question about how do we consider research priorities when making our decisions on K grants. So for example, headache research priorities co-developed with NINDS, epilepsy priorities, pain or heal priorities, etc.
Do we want to take that as well?
Yeah, why don't you take that one? Then Elizabeth, if you want to speak to the heal piece
sure.
Afterwards.
Yeah, and I would say that generally NINDS is not in the training space. We just want to fund the best applications that come in, right? As long as it's in our mission, so that is congressionally mandated. The scientific landscape that we cover is directed by Congress, and so as long as it's within our mission, if it's a great application, we want to fund it. So we're not prioritizing epilepsy, say, over migraine, over Parkinson's research. We're looking at all of it and just wanting to fund the applications that are ready to go and ready to go out the door. And Elizabeth, you can speak to the heal piece.
Yeah, so for the HEAL initiative, since we don't have NOFOs, we're currently pulling from the parent for K99s, K08s, and K23s. And so I look at everything that comes in within the pain space and we consider weighing it against the HEAL priorities. It is a lot of nuance, so I would certainly suggest anybody who thinks that they might be relevant to the HEAL space to reach out so we can discuss how that works. But you would come into the parent, be reviewed the same, be considered for NINDS-based funds, and then HEAL is additional pain funding that is available.
Yeah, and similar things I think are happening with other trans NIH programs, such as the Brain Initiative or the ADRD, Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So there's some nuance there, but I always just tell people generally, we don't have specific scientific funding priorities, like Tish said, within the NINDS mission funds. So I think with that, it looks like most of the other questions in the chat are pretty specific to the various activity codes. So I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and you should be able to see them under rooms in just a few seconds. And we have divided that up into the K32, the K01 and K99, and then the clinician case. So please feel free to start joining those rooms now, and we will meet you over there and answer your questions.